Welcome to Pod Appétit.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, I'm Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And I'm Meg.
After a long 2 months, we're back. As you may already know, Bon Appétit has not released any new video content since June 5th, 2020, when the company was criticized for racial discrimination, marginalization, and pay inequity. Not only was there no new content for us to recap, but we also felt it was our duty to step back from podcasting as usual and hold Bon Appétit accountable until real change had been made. Through our Twitter account, we reported on any breaking BA news and amplified dissenting voices from staffers like Jesse Sparks, Elise Inamine, Ryan Walker-Hartshorn, and others. So now, 2 months have passed, and we have an update on everything that's happened at Bon Appétit and Conde Nast in the meantime. We're going to start the show with a recap of recent events, including our thoughts and the fan community's reactions. Then we're going to talk about the future of Pod Appétit. We have a couple of exciting announcements about our podcast, so be sure to stick around for that. You won't want to miss it. Okay, let's get into it. We encourage you to listen to our previous episode for the full story, but if you missed it, here are the highlights of what happened in early June.
Previously on Pod Appétit.
I feel like we've really made it now that we can say that.
Okay. On June 8th, 2020, Adam Rappaport stepped down as Bon Appétit's editor-in-chief after a damning photo of him in brownface emerged. But that was only the beginning. Staffers began to speak out about rampant pay inequity and racial discrimination throughout Bon Appétit and Conde Nast, with Sola El-Waylly leading the charge. Sola revealed that Conde Nast Entertainment had not been compensating her or other people of color for their appearances on Bon Appétit's YouTube channel. Many of the channel's other stars, like Claire Saffitz, said they would refuse to appear in video until fair compensation for their colleagues was addressed. Bon Appétit stopped releasing video content as contract negotiations and internal investigations commenced. Now, on to the updates. We're recording this episode on Sunday, August 23rd, so please be aware that things may have changed by the time you hear this.
On June 15th, Amanda Shapiro stepped in as acting deputy editor following Adam Rappaport's resignation. Shapiro released a statement on behalf of Bon Appétit titled Keeping Ourselves Accountable, which offered further apologies and outlined steps for the future. However, the statement was not well received among fans, perceived by many as an empty gesture. Also, on June 15th, Conde Nast retained the infamous union-busting law firm Proskauer Rose as a third party to investigate its workers' allegations of discrimination.
I reread that statement this morning, and it feels like more of a slap in the face than ever.
Well, it's just so vague. Like, it said nothing, and it didn't outline any concrete, objectives or, we had no idea as an audience what it is that we expected to see as a result of all the kind of keeping themselves accountable. I mean, obviously, we know internally they wanted, and the people of colour involved in sort of working on that statement were trying to create a statement that had more teeth, but it got watered down before it got released. And there were rumours, or certainly people said that internally they were using the original version, the teethier version, to keep themselves accountable. But that was of no use to us because, we couldn't see what that was. Yeah. So, yeah, it was bullshit, in my opinion.
It's all bullshit.
And not only was it vague to the audience, but as we and the listeners will discover as we go further down this timeline, it seems like internally that clear, measurable goals also were not made apparent to staffers. So really, it was a very, very empty gesture.
Weak sauce.
So then on June 17th, the Foodcast, Bon Appétit's official podcast, formerly hosted by Adam Rappaport, released a short message. They announced that they will be launching a new podcast soon with new hosts and a new name. But there have been no further updates or episodes to date.
On June 25th, Business Insider broke the news that beloved video editor Matt Hunziker, known to fans as Hunzi, had been suspended. Conde Nast Entertainment's then president, Oren Katsev, said that Hunzi had been suspended, quote-unquote, pending investigation by the company. A Conde Nast representative said, quote, "There have been many concerns raised about Hunziker that the company is obliged to investigate," end quote. Fans believed that, in actuality, Hunzi had been suspended as retaliation for tweets he had made criticizing Conde Nast. One such tweet read, quote, "I sat in a meeting once where we were told that the brand wanted to increase diversity but wanted to preserve the voice. The inability of leadership to understand the incompatibility of those ideas is incredibly revealing," end quote. Many of Hunzi's colleagues, including Priya Krishna, Sola El-Waili, editorial assistant Jesse Sparks, and research director Joseph Hernandez, condemned the suspension on social media, emphasizing that Hunzi was a true advocate and ally.
So this was a real smack in the face.
This one made us all very angry.
This was the day that I was like, excuse me, what the hell? You're not doing this right. This is not happening properly. Because Hunzi, it was just the fact that so many of the people that had been affected by the issues were really backing him as like one of the best allies that they seem to have, that I was like, this is not about anything, you know, he's not implicated in the issues related to inequality. He is being punished for speaking out about that. And it is, I mean, it was just so obvious. It was just really, really bad. Yeah. Really bad.
It was just further proof that Conde Nast was speaking out of both sides of their mouth, because recently before that, the CEO of Conde Nast had said, we want everyone who works here to make their opinions known. We want them to express themselves. But
hold us accountable.
Yeah, but what they really meant was actually keep that to yourself and maybe say something behind closed doors. But it was just so patently transparent that they would not accept dissenting voices, especially if those voices were in a public sphere like Twitter.
Yeah. That's not holding people accountable, because you can say whatever you want behind closed doors. They don't have to listen to you. But when you say it publicly, that's when their reputation starts to matter, and that's when they start to listen. And they were blocking that from happening. So it's like, well, you don't really want to be held accountable then, do you?
It's like trying to silence a whistleblower. Not that Hunzi was being necessarily a whistleblower, but he was, as you said, holding them accountable, and they just wanted to silence that as quickly as they could.
Yeah.
This is also one of many, many examples that we'll see here of Conde Nast just being stupid from a business perspective. They're targeting one of their most beloved characters on their channel. Yeah. And not to mention, as many, many people in BA, outside of BA, pointed out, they could have cleared up all of these problems by, you know, paying their employees fairly. Yeah. But instead, they've torpedoed themselves. It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. On July 2nd, Business Insider's Rachel Premack published yet another piece on Conde Nast. The article detailed Conde Nast Entertainment's, quote, racist vetting process, which has largely kept people of color off screen.
This is a really good article, I think, to see behind not just Bon Appetit, but Conde Nast Entertainment in general, and their bias that they back up with biased facts. I mean, truly, it's
Sorry, I laugh because it's ridiculous.
I know, it is. It's like, well, historically, this is what this racist system did. Therefore, we're backing it up with that, so that's what it is. Just like, no.
Yeah, it's the whole thing like Sola had pointed out. They're like, they're just saying the white people did well because they're the ones on screen, so they're doing well. But...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a real logic feedback loop that doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah.
Again, it's them being stupid.
Yeah, and like the stuff about it wasn't Bon Appetit, but some of the other Conde Nast entities turning down content about Lizzo and Megan Thee Stallion and stuff like that, and just being like, well, I don't know, this video of them from years ago only has this many views, and it's like, but they're popular that time has changed. Okay, never mind. Like, it just, yeah.
You can't follow an algorithm and views when it comes to to this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, that won't make it fair, because we live in a society that hasn't prioritized diversity. So, you know, you can't, they're damned from the beginning, if you're following that logic.
Hunzi's tweet that we quoted pretty much encapsulates this. He says that the brand said they want to diversify, but they want to keep the voice the same. But when the voice is predominantly white, then that means you're just going to keep a white voice going.
Yeah, exactly. In early July, Basically and Healthyish quietly started trickling out web content again, including email newsletters and recipes authored by people of colour. The comments were flooded with demands for BA to address pay inequity before returning to business as usual. I think this was really telling. Like, they were like, let's just test it on our, like, sub-brands and see what we can,
they were doing
what we
a
can
test
get away with.
To see the reaction.
And Bon Appétit, as far as I know, the actual main distribution channel hasn't produced much. It's been mainly Basically and Healthyish, right, since this happened. I just thought this was so sneaky, really sneaky.
Yeah, I think we discussed before, Bon Appetit has done many things to essentially not tell on themselves because, I mean, of course, why would they? They don't want to cast themselves in a bad light. But if you were to go to the Bon Appetit YouTube channel, there's no indication whatsoever of everything that's been happening in the last 2 months. And that's kind of the same mindset that led to these newsletters and recipes being released without any sort of context surrounding it. It's just kind of like, oh, hopefully the people not in the know will continue not to know and support us and read our recipes.
And everybody else will forget about it. As we will talk about next, there's almost a month gap between this and like the next thing that happens.
Yeah. It's just the lack of transparency is galling, like absolutely galling, because the audience deserve better. They deserve to do better by the people that they've wronged as well.
On July 31st, Conde Nast Entertainment announced that Agnes Chu will be joining them as president. A 12-year Disney veteran, Chu will be exiting her role as Senior VP of Content for Disney Plus to head Conde Nast's entertainment division come September. Chu will also be replacing Oren Katzif. Katzif is reportedly moving into a new role at the company after coming under fire in June for his many problematic tweets.
Protected by the boys club.
Yes, it's very telling that Katzif is not getting canned or forced to resign. He's just being given a different role within the company.
It's like a tale as old as time, right?
Yeah. It reminded me of Pixar when Lasseter got outed for all of his sexual abuse, and then they were like, well, we're just going to have him be advisory for now.
Yeah.
And then he went and got picked up by another animation group right away. And it was just like...
There's no accountability. Like, nothing bad happens. They just get moved elsewhere. And, you know, can basically carry on doing what they were doing. I don't know how people feel about Agnes coming on. That, obviously, we're recording in late August. She hasn't started yet. She'll start in September. I don't know what impact that change will have. It'll be interesting to see, I guess.
I do feel like when we look back at this at the end of July, when we got this news about Agnes Chu, we all felt like there was this little glimmer of hope. Like, yeah, it's the Katzif not being completely fired and just given a new role is upsetting, but it was like, okay, but Agnes Chu and like Disney Plus has been doing well for itself, so maybe like she'll have a fresh new voice and can help bring change. And then, you know, August happened, but at that point in time, I do feel like we had this tiny little glimmer, and as we continue to discuss what happened in August, it's like, you're not backing any of this up. I know she's not there yet, but it's like, Condé Nast in general is not backing anything up.
I think she's going to have a really tough job to actually balance what she might see that she's there to do, like, you know, make things more diverse and better, versus what the stakeholders want her to do, which is make money. It's an almost impossible situation. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see how that plays out.
I think it's a step in the right direction, obviously, to hire a woman of color. But the cynical part of me thinking about Disney is all about the bottom line, very shrewd. And Disney hires very smart people who get this done. And I don't know really anything about Agnes Chu, but based on her history, it seems like she's probably very good at bringing in money. And I just have to wonder, will that mean that she'll continue to do what Conde Nast has been doing? Is just like, let's look at the bottom line, like, let's not invest in the future? Or will she actually, bring change? And, having a diverse platform is an opportunity for a lot of money, but it's a question of, will they do the tried and true method because that's just what we've done as a society forever? Or will she actually enact something different? Mm-hmm. Or it might be bringing diversity, but in a more expected way. Sola said that she thinks it's likely that Bon Appetit will bring in celebrities instead of having a sort of real life feel, which is what the test kitchen was, which I think is likely to happen.
Yeah, I think that'll be the safe way of doing it, and they're all about safe.
On August 3rd, the Sporkful podcast released an update on the turmoil inside Bon Appetit, including statements and information from several BA insiders, all of whom asked not to be named for fear of retaliation. Sadly, listeners were left with the impression that movement toward real change at BA was at a standstill.
This was a real bummer of a podcast episode to listen to.
That was a sad episode. I was like, welp, it's over.
That's it then. Yeah, I was like, R.I.P.
Pack it up.
Yeah. And no, that's only 3 days, 3 days difference from like the little glimmer of hope. And then it was just like, nope, August, never mind, already.
I do recommend listening to that episode though, if you haven't.
For sure.
Yes.
It's a really good summary.
Link in our show notes. On August 6th, in a heartbreaking turn of events, Sola El-Waylly, Priya Krishna, and Rick Martinez announced that they were officially departing from Condé Nast Entertainment after failed contract negotiations. Sola, Priya, and Rick all made heartfelt comments on social media. Priya tweeted, quote, "I refuse to be a part of a system that takes advantage of me while insisting I should be grateful for scraps. I hope to find platforms that value me, treat me as a three-dimensional person, and provide a safe environment. Bon Appetit Video is not that place," end quote. Rick said on Instagram, quote, "Marginalized groups are made to feel less than. We are told we are not worth more, and we are bullied into accepting something that we know and that they know is not fair. But we do not have to accept what they offer. My happiness and my self-worth are more important to me than returning to the test kitchen," end quote. Sola posted on Instagram, quote, "I've decided I won't be producing any more videos for Bon Appetit. But don't worry, you'll still find me at BA developing fun recipes and stories. No hate to the editors who've decided to stay. It's just not the right thing for me," end quote. Sola also said in a statement to Business Insider, quote, "I don't think BA is going to invest in regular people ever again. If just part of the team returns and then new random brown people, that's so transparent. People aren't that stupid. But maybe if they get Beyonce, I'll watch," end quote.
I love Sola.
Sola will stay in her role writing content for BA's magazine and website, while Priya and Rick will continue to freelance on the brand's editorial side. That same day, Bon Appetit announced that Sonia Chopra, former director of editorial strategy for Vox's Media's Eater, will be joining BA as executive editor.
Oh,
it was a lot.
This was a sad day. I think this was the day that we were like, okay, well, we're done. Like, this is not going to be the same. Like, there's no way. They can't come back from this now.
This was definitely a nail in the coffin.
They couldn't do it. They couldn't give the contracts. Like, our former test kitchen people are like, these contracts are not what we asked for. So that's it. That's end of negotiations.
I feel like also one of the things we said at the end of our last episode when we were talking about what's next is that we were like, we are going to be looking for signals from the people of colour that have been impacted by all of this mess to see what they think. You know, it will be their behavior and their actions and their words that we're looking to see if BA is something that we can continue to support. And this was a massive statement that it isn't, that it's not something we can the video side of it for sure is not something we can continue to support at this time. They're not willing to pay people fairly. Like, that's led some of their some of their best talent to leave. I mean, how stupid. Like, they've completely torpedoed one of the best success stories they have as far as video is concerned, just because they don't want to pay people fairly. Like, how stupid.
It's ridiculous. Well, and this is when we kind of officially, like, in our Slack group, we're like, okay, we gotta talk about what we're gonna do going forward. Like, and this is when we really, I think, started buckling down and thinking about when are we gonna talk and what are we gonna do.
Yeah, it was a waiting
Pod
game
Appétit.
until then. Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think what Sola guessed at, that she thinks Bon Appétit might bring back people and then other new brown faces, like she said. And she also said that's so transparent and that the audience is not that stupid. And as much as it pains me to say it, it seems like that's probably what Bon Appétit is going to do.
Yeah,
we'll put a
that's
pin
what
in
they're
that,
doing.
but there's an update a little bit forward that seems like this is exactly the direction they're going. And it's just very disheartening. And it is rather insulting to not only their chefs, but to the audience. We aren't that stupid, and we're not going to stand for trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
And you know what makes me so sad is that, yes, the YouTube channel was hugely popular, and it had a massive, hardcore fan community on the internet, of which we were really enjoyed being an active member of. But there is a huge percentage of that subscriber base who isn't that active on the internet and hasn't got any information about what's happened and will probably just continue to watch. And so actually, numbers-wise, like, I think, the hardcore fan community, hardcore, I mean, that makes us sound, I don't know, like we were going to conventions and stuff. We weren't. But, like, do you know what I mean? Like, the active community, fan community base is, I think, from what I've seen on Twitter and Instagram, is pretty much done. But I don't think that will be, I think that will be a tiny blip in the numbers. I think because BA is such a well-known brand, the subscriber count actually will probably be fine for them in terms of advertising revenue, in terms of, so they're just going to get away with it. They're just going to get away with it. And it really fucks me off, to be quite honest.
There is definitely a large audience of people who are like, okay, I don't care about this. Let's get back to cooking.
Yeah.
They're like, I didn't. There are literally people on the internet who are like, I didn't think Solo was that talented anyway. Like,
Oh my god, assholes.
Yeah, right?
Don't besmirch the name of Sola.
Yeah, let Amanda at them. She'll sort them out. But it just winds me up, because I know, as vocal as we've all been and the other people in the fan community have been, it's a drop in the ocean compared to what actually matters, which is, the subscriber numbers, the views, the advertising revenue, and they'll get away with it.
If we look at their YouTube subscribers alone, it's still holding pretty fast at 6 million. They had a small dip when all this news came to light, but it's actually slowly climbed back up the last time I checked. So there hasn't been a real dent in their subscribership.
I feel like that's partly my fault. I just unsubscribed. I was still subscribed.
It's all your fault, Amanda.
it's all
It's
your
my
fault,
fault.
Amanda.
No, it isn't. It's because Bon Appetit is just a well-known brand outside of the internet, outside of everything. And, if you're just looking and you think, oh, I like the magazine, I've never really thought about where else it is, and you see it on YouTube, you'll just subscribe. Like, you won't be aware of any of this stuff.
We know there are people who just watch Claire videos, just
Right.
watch It's Alive. They weren't in the BA universe, as we call it. Because you can tell, but yes, the views.
But it just makes me sad, because they had such an engaged faction of that subscriber base as a community. And everybody that I can think of that is that engaged, all the big names, are pretty much done with them now. And it's just so foolish. It's just so short-sighted, and it's just sad. It's just really sad.
Yeah.
On August 7th, in an act of solidarity and allyship, Bolly
Maz.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Right. Molly Baz announced on Instagram that she had asked to be released from her video contract with Conde Nast Entertainment. In her post, Molly said, quote, "Yesterday we lost 3 valuable members of our video team. I support their decisions unequivocally, and I'm extremely disheartened that CNE was unable to provide contracts that they felt were fair and equitable. I will no longer appear on the BA YouTube channel," end quote. Like Solar, Molly will continue to develop recipes and write content for BA's magazine and website. Later that same day, Gabby Melian joined her colleagues in distancing herself from CNE. Gabby said on Instagram, quote, "After weeks of negotiations, CNE is not meeting my expectations regarding the plans to have a more diverse and inclusive video program. For that reason, I will not be signing a contract with them to appear in videos," end quote. Gabby will continue to work as the test kitchen manager and is branching out with her own website, gabbyskitchen.com. The snowball kept rolling. Former assistant to Adam Rappaport, Ryan Walker-Hartshorn, announced on Instagram that she was leaving BA entirely. Ryan stated, quote, "I introduced previously non-existent conversations about diversity and inclusion, challenging every department at BA to consider the people they had always left out. In my next chapter, I want to continue championing Black stories and Black people, wherever that may be," end quote. Also on August 7th, Jesse Sparks stepped down from his role at BA as editorial assistant, accepting a position of editor at Eater. Jesse posted a long thread of heartfelt tweets detailing his 2 years at BA and his tireless campaign for greater representation of marginalised voices in the magazine. Regarding leaving BA, Jesse said, quote, "This isn't just a win for me, it's a brand new table. Luckily, we brought our own chairs," end quote. With Ryan's and Jesse's resignation, Bon Appétit is down its only Black staffers.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, this was a bad day. I mean,
Yes.
I just, when the only 2 Black people leave, like, that's like, okay, so yeah, there's no hope here.
I mean, like, is it a bad day or was it a good day? Because it sounds like the people are leaving the evil organization.
Oh, good for them, but
Yes.
it's just bad for, you know, if you're just looking at it from BA's perspective, it's just like, you have done real wrong here. Real wrong.
Yeah, there's not a much clearer signal that you have failed at diversifying your staff than losing your only 2 Black staff members.
There it is.
Yeah. I have to say, though, I was so happy when Molly was the first to be like, I am not taking the video contract if these people aren't being paid fairly, because that is what allyship looks like, you know. I was having exactly that conversation with my husband just before, I think it was the day before this all happened, and I said, we were talking about, you know, what the white staffers should do, and I said, well, obviously I've never been in that situation, but I would like to think that if I was, I wouldn't just follow the money, because, you know, they're all stars on that video channel, right? Like, they all have a platform on their own personal Instagrams, and actually they don't have to tie themselves to Conde Nast Entertainment if they don't want to. If it was me, I would want to get out of my video contract with Conde Nast Entertainment as soon as I can. I understand that can't happen necessarily straight away because you're bound by whatever you've signed, but I would want to be terminating that as soon as I could, deciding whether I wanted to leave entirely or not. But even if I stayed, be like, well, maybe I'll go and do video. If I really want to pursue video as a thing, I'll do it somewhere else. I'll collaborate with another channel. I'll do it independently. Yeah. I'll do it in my spare time, whatever. And then maybe, you know, I think they've got big enough platforms, if that's what they want to do, to go and do that independently and potentially make enough money to stop working at BA altogether if they wanted to. I just think blindly staying where you are and taking the money and being like, oh, it's not really, you know, anything to do with me. Cough, Brad, cough. You know what I mean? Like, that is not that's not the
Not
way
a
to
good
do this, you know. And I was just, when Molly came out like the next day and was like, I am getting out of video if they can't do, I was like, that is what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see from everyone who said that they stood in solidarity with everybody.
I feel like it drives me crazy a little bit to see so many Twitter comments from people being like, why don't they just start their own YouTube channel? I'm like, they're not YouTubers.
Yeah.
They're chefs. They were working here. They started being videoed. And I mean, some of them are more influencer inclined, like Molly. But at the end of the day, being a YouTuber is a full-time job and it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah. I don't think it's easy. Yeah, I don't think they could have, you know, been like, oh, we'll just do it somewhere else. I think what will probably happen if they want to pursue video, not at Conde Nast, is, you know, some of the stuff like Sola's been doing with Binging with Babish, like collaborations like that. Start there, and then, you know, maybe someone else might offer you a job doing that. And if you want to pursue video versus magazines, you could do that. That would be an opportunity open to you. You've got, you know, enough voice, enough audience to be able to do that. But yeah, I just think anyone who is white and staying doing videos for Conde Nast is just not someone that I think we should be paying any attention to after all of this.
Yeah.
Speaking of Molly being a good ally, I've always liked Molly, but a sentiment that I've seen a lot online after all this happened is people saying, I never really liked Molly, but now I really like her. So I am at least glad that people are, you know, supporting her allyship. And also, not only did she make this most recent announcement, but she was the first white chef on YouTube to say that she would no longer appear in videos until pay inequity was addressed.
She started
and
that,
she also openly shared information about her salary and her contract with Condé Nast Entertainment among her colleagues. So she's really demonstrated solidarity in a lot of ways throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. I've been really impressed with Molly in particular, and I was really sad when I saw those comments. I was like, oh, I didn't like her before, but now I like her. And I was like, she was good before. Like, yeah.
I've seen those comments, and I've had friends who have also said, like, she grates on them, and it's a lot of how she seems privileged, or has seemed privileged in her thing, you know, in a lot of the content. But yeah, there's a different, you know, that's the way she appeared, but she's actually backing up her words with actions instead of...
Well, she is privileged, but using your privilege to help others is the key to how we get through this.
Exactly. And I'm just really pleased that she's kept that going. So, and, you know, didn't wait to follow someone else in doing it. She did it she started it in all those cases. Yeah.
And I think fans are also more sympathetic to her now, knowing exactly how awful Adam was.
Right.
What she had to put up with in all those videos.
Constantly paired with him. And I always hated that, you know. I always had a funny feeling about those videos. I didn't like it.
Briefly going back to some of the other events of this day, I just want to encourage everyone to follow Jesse Sparks on Twitter, because he has an amazing Twitter account. Very funny person. All right, speaking of using your privilege for good or not for good, on August 10th, Alex Delaney updated his Instagram with 2 lengthy text posts. In these posts, he apologized for racist, homophobic, and sexist content he had posted to social media years before. He acknowledged his privilege and said that he has changed his ways since then. He also went into detail about his work history and salary at Bon Appétit in an effort to dispel rumors about his supposed net worth and how he arrived at his position as drinks editor. Delaney's statement also said that he resumed work at Bon Appétit that day, lending credence to rumors that he had been suspended at the same time as Matt Hunziker. Business Insider later confirmed that Hunzi returned to work on August 10th as well. Also, according to Business Insider, Condé Nast leaders had forbidden staffers from speaking out in support of Hunzi and demanded that pro-Hunzi social media posts be deleted.
Some of those fucking Condé Nast leaders...
This is a lot to unpack.
Sorry, this makes me so mad, because this is when Anna Wintour showed back up. I'm like... and I thought, I'm sorry, why are you having Anna Wintour telling Bon Appetit people not to support Hunzi? Like, just the optics are so horrible on so many levels. And, like, I know I brought her up in our last episode with, like, what was going on with Vogue. And I don't understand why she is still in power at this point. She is notorious for being a horrible person to lots of people. She may be a quote-unquote tastemaker, but who fucking cares anymore?
Well, she's left me with a bad taste in my mouth after all of this, that's for sure.
Ooh.
I'm over Anna Wintour. It's not cool to be an asshole and continue to be a racist asshole.
So Delaney, huh?
This is, oh my God, this is also now where you get the people being like, see, they aren't paying the white people either. Everybody's bad and there's no racism whatsoever.
Yeah.
People see that on the internet.
Yeah, that's the sound of the last couple of months. Delaney's a tricky one, right? Like, obviously, his past is not anything to be proud of and something to be ashamed of, in fact. And I think he is a tricky one for me because he has shown change, right? So clearly in his past, he has done things that I would not want to support or associate with at all. But out of all of the people who's had things like dug up from their past in this whole saga, he's the one that has demonstrated with his words and actions since then that he has grown and changed and done stuff differently as a result, and is continuing to do that, right? Like, I feel like he has been quite open about the fact that, you know, he may not have been as aware of the privilege that he held coming up through BA until fairly recently, but actually he wants to, you know, do his best to do more about that. So I don't feel like he's someone that I can just write off, like I probably can a few other people, because of his openness, because of his willingness to like reflect and like do some work about the bad things that he's done in the past. I just think it's quite dangerous if you start cancelling people without giving the opportunity to do differently. You know, obviously if they do nothing with that opportunity and don't change and don't do anything, then that's you know, that's a reason where you can, within your rights, walk away. But I feel like Delaney is not quite in that boat.
To that point, if you look at Delaney's Instagram feed before everything that happened at Bon Appétit in June, you will see that he's demonstrated a capacity to be different. He was very vocal about supporting Black Lives Matter. He was donating to organizations at the forefront of Black Lives Matter. And this was all before he had been called out for past behavior. So to me, that illustrates that he was doing this because that's what he truly believed in, not as a reaction, not as an apology. So I think there is definitely something to be said for that.
You have to believe that people have the capacity to change and grow. Otherwise, you know, there's no point. But, you know, the important thing is to hold them to that, right? And I think he seems to be certainly holding himself to that at the moment.
And as we've mentioned before, it's not our place to accept Delaney's apology, right?
No.
It's up to his colleagues of color who have been harmed.
Right.
And like we've said before, we look to those people to be the bellwethers of what Bon Appétit is going to be like going forward.
Right.
On August 12th, Carla Lalli Music took a page from Molly's book and announced that she was also leaving Conde Nast Entertainment as a show of solidarity. Carla tweeted, quote, "CNE is still, to this day, unable or unwilling to articulate specific measurable goals about diversity and inclusion among BA hosts, crew, show topics, or recipe selection. We waited and waited for nothing." End quote. Carla also acknowledged that she could have done more to use her privilege to elevate BIPOC around her. She hopes to remain a food editor at large on BA's editorial side. Also on August 12th, the New York Post reported that Bon Appétit will soon resume video production. A Condé Nast Entertainment representative told the Post, quote, "We are planning for BA video production to begin in September with some returning talent, in addition to new contributors, which we'll be announcing in the coming weeks. We will be using this time to reset and work with the teams and ensure diversity in front of and behind the camera for BA video." End quote.
So what's the deal here? Is it that they're getting new contributors that are, you know, diverse, that have just accepted the shitty terms that the other people didn't accept. Like, how is that a win? Like, how is that a success story? It really isn't.
It's not. It's not.
I feel like as we get further along in these stories, I'm like, I have less to say because I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Fuck
but
these guys.
Like, they thought that it was, you know, they thought that this was a great enough announcement that they've gone and given quotes to the Post. Like, nobody's happy about this, Conde Nast. Like, you fucked it. You fumbled the ball. You've missed the goal. I don't know any other sports metaphors because I'm not a sports fan. Like, you've just screwed the pooch. Like,
you dropped the pie on the floor.
Yes. You've thrown what was that Bake Off where he throws the thing in the bin? Like, that's what he's done.
The Baked Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
You binned your Baked Alaska.
Exactly.
Completely melted.
It's a disaster, Claire. I don't know how else to put this.
It's soggy bottoms all the way down.
Yeah.
Okay, on August 15th, Emil Stanek, editor-at-large, also asked to be released from his video contract with Condé Nast Entertainment. On Instagram, Emil said, quote, "I feel let down and disappointed in a lot of ways. I also feel a lot of gratitude and hope for the future. To all my BA video people, I love you, I miss you, I see you, I trust you. Here's to what's next." End quote.
Good for you, Emil. The only thing I thought, though, when I read this was, well, I don't have to listen to him chewing anymore. Great.
Goodbye, Emil's chewing noises.
I thought my crush on Emil can stay.
Yes. Emil's one of the good ones. That's okay. Emil's in the good box.
Ooh, that would be like Who's in the Bad Box. We'll get to that.
We will get to that. August 17th. Amid calls for diversity, Bon Appétit named Marcus Samuelsson as its first brand advisor. Samuelsson is a James Beard award-winning chef, a Top Chef Masters and Chopped All-Stars winner, and the host of PBS's No Passport Required. BA announced that Samuelsson will offer insights on global food culture, help expand BA's recipe content, guest edit the holiday issue, and spearhead new initiatives and programming.
So again, I think this points to one of the likely paths that BA is going to take going forward, which is getting celebrities on their side as sort of the new face of the magazine and perhaps the new face of the YouTube channel, just like Sola predicted.
It must be nice to have celebrities on your side.
It must be nice.
I've just watched Hamilton for like the billionth time, so yeah. No, but honestly, like, and if that is the case, I'm just like, fuck these guys. Like, that's not interesting to me. That's not interesting content to me. That's just lip service and pretend.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I feel like this news was met with a resounding meh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the Food Network guy. It's Food Network now. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like it's nothing special anymore where they're headed. Like, the BA test kitchen as it was, if they had been all paid fairly, was just such a unique, special way of producing food content on video on the internet. Like, nobody had really done it like that before, and I don't think you could recreate it artificially. It was just organic, and it just grew into what it was. You know, you can't engineer that. Like, no, I think someone said this in an interview. I can't remember which article it was or podcast it was, but, you know, if you tried to get an algorithm to tell you what to do, it wouldn't have spat out bring these random people from the magazine and get them to just riff in front of a camera. But it worked, and they've lost it now. They've just lost it. They've just completely destroyed it, and they're never going to get that back. And celebrities and bringing in that kind of like Vogue style video content is not going to be the same, but it will probably get them the views, and well, I'm sure they'll all pat themselves on the back for that. Great.
Well, that's what they want, because they just want the money. They just want the revenue.
Yeah.
And if a celebrity will get them the views and the revenue from it, then
It's
there we go.
a tragedy.
Like you were saying, LJ, they really took a risk on their video content. They did something unconventional and it was successful. And then they burned it to the ground themselves with their own stupidity. And now they're back to not taking risks. Having celebrity chefs is such well-trodden ground. There's absolutely nothing unique about it. And I guess they're okay with having the status quo again.
It's just boring. It's not interesting, and I'm not interested.
All right, our final update in this timeline. On August 21st, Rachel Carton, Associate Director of Social Media for Bon Appétit, Epicurious, Healthyish, and Basically, announced her departure. Rachel tweeted, quote, "It is clear that Conde Nast is not a positive work environment for my BPOC colleagues. And it has become increasingly clear that corporate leadership would rather continue the company's history of racism and exploitation than take any sort of real action towards systemic change," end quote. At the time of recording, it's unclear whether or not Claire Saffitz, Brad Leone, Chris Morocco, Andy Baragani, Alex Delaney, or Christina Che will make further appearances on Bon Appetit video through Conde Nast Entertainment.
There's that noise again. The heavy sigh.
So here's the potential bad box, right?
Yeah.
Claire, Brad,
Yeah.
Chris, Andy, Alex. Christina, I'm not putting in a bad box. 'Cause
No,
she's been
definitely not
impacted.
Christina. She's
No.
just been overall kind of quiet in these past few weeks, and I
Yeah.
totally do not fault her for that at all. Of course, she is also a woman of color, so she is affected by this, and yeah, she cannot be lumped in with everyone else.
No.
And she hardly ever posts on social media to begin with.
True.
Right.
She said what she wanted to say and then like backed out again.
Yeah, she's never been in the spotlight, so I'm not surprised that she wouldn't put herself there right now. So
Yeah.
go Christina, you do you.
Yeah, but, you know, the rest of those guys, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
So as the statement from Bon Appetit to the Post said, that there would be returning talent, right? There would be people who are known to the audience. So does that mean Claire, Brad, Chris, and Andy?
I guess that's all they got left, right?
That's what I'm thinking. I wonder a little bit. So with Claire and Brad, I mean, clearly they have contracts with Condé Nast Entertainment, and their shows are the two that are the most popular and bring in the views for Bon Appetit with Gourmet Makes and It's Alive. I mean, as you know, we've shown on our show, like those often are our favorites, and are often the listeners' favorites when LJ does the polls on Twitter. And I wonder to some extent if Gourmet Makes, but more so It's Alive, is a brand owned by Bon Appetit and Condé Nast Entertainment.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it will be.
I mean, I'm not saying this is any sort of excuse by any means, not at all. But I do wonder to some extent if, with Brad in particular, he wants to keep that It's Alive because Hunzi is not leaving either. And my guess is Hunzi is sticking with wherever It's Alive and Brad are. And I don't know. That's just my supposition, is that that has something to do with them staying there. I don't think there's anything wrong with changing your name and doing something different somewhere else and moving on when you are morally
Wink,
opposed to
wink.
something.
That's an interesting thing about Hunzi. So his one and only role is video editor, right? So unlike Molly or Scylla, who do things for the editorial side on the magazine, there's not a video editor for the magazine, right? So what does that mean for Hunzi? He's still on with Bon Appetit. He doesn't seem like he's leaving. I don't know. Maybe he plans to. Does this mean the return of It's Alive? Maybe.
I think it would get views. I honestly think it would get views if they brought
I'm
it back.
sure it would. And this is what really disheartens me. Like, if Brad and Claire and Hunzi went back to the shows as usual because they thought, as we've been saying, it's really only the hardcore fans who have been following what's happening. There's tons of people on YouTube who will just get It's Live or Gourmet Makes recommended to them and they will watch it. Do they think this is something that they can recover from career-wise? Do they just think, well, it's a minority of people who are mad at us and we're just going to go ahead with our jobs as usual? I would be even more incensed if that turned out to be the truth, but I guess this is a wait and see situation.
I'm not holding out any hope that that's not the case. because I've been disappointed before. I honestly think that's what they'll do. They do acknowledge it in some way if they do make an effort to bring on more diverse guest stars. But, you know, It's Alive has guests, but Gourmet Makes doesn't tend to. It's just, for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm done.
Plus, how many times have we discussed, does Claire even enjoy doing Gourmet Makes anymore? Why stick around with this?
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people are making a lot of excuses for their beloved Claire. And I just have to say, she can go right in the bad box if she's just going to go back to Gourmet Makes. And exactly, it's like, you know what? I don't feel too bad for you being, quote, forced to make a gourmet food when you're being compensated so well and you have your voice in front of a lot of people. And she was given a platform to, I'm sure, sell many, many copies of her upcoming cookbook.
Yeah.
She has benefited wildly, and she is absolutely from a position of privilege.
I have been initially when all this started coming out, and we mentioned in our last recap of events episode, Solidarity, Claire had made statements in support of the people of colour affected. She had said that she was also striking from video. She's also not, she's freelance, right? So she's not employed by the magazine in like a permanent capacity, so she can come and go as she pleases. But we have not heard anything from her since all these people have started leaving. And the cynical part of me is like, she doesn't want to upset the promotion for her book. She doesn't want to do anything that might jeopardize the positive reception of that in any way. So maybe she's just like, I'm going to keep quiet and just, you know.
She's made some appearances. She's done some live streams with other people. She's promoted an apron sale for charity.
Yes.
She's done other things except talk about what's happening here.
And I feel like there is an obligation, if you stepped in to say something at the beginning of all this, I think you owe an update on what you're going to do now, you know? And she's not given that. And so I'm a bit disappointed.
Yeah, right now I'm disappointed. I will still reserve final judgment, I guess, until we see how everything shakes out. But
I'd want it to be acknowledged.
I'm not optimistic.
I'd want it to be acknowledged before I can support her again.
In general, we have done a good job at looking at something that we loved in the past tense and being critical of it and not just being like, well, we liked it so much, so we just have to keep liking it, right? Like, it's just...
Keep making excuses, keep doing mental gymnastics to try to make it okay. Yeah, we're not going to do that.
So I guess that takes us to what this means now. We've come to the end of our timeline, what this means for our future coverage of BA. It probably won't come as a shock to say that it's not gonna be the same. We're not gonna
Yay. I feel like as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh good, now we can talk about good happy things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we get to stop being angry.
Yeah, in the parlance of Marie Kondo, Bon Appetit does not spark joy for me anymore.
No. So I think we're using this episode. I know because we've discussed it. We're using this episode as a opportunity to just draw a line under our, close relationship with BA. They've proven that they're not taking this seriously. They're not making the changes that we would want to see in order to support the video content, in good consciousness. So, we're just not going to spend our energy on it. Like, I'm done. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
We are cutting ties with Bon Appetit. We are saying goodbye and closing that cookbook.
So yeah, we are moving on. We have a brand new name. We shall henceforth be known as Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. So we're taking the Pod Appétit you know and love, and we're mixing it up. Instead of covering Bon Appétit, we're going to be exploring and recapping all kinds of food shows in short, bite-sized seasons. For about 5 episodes or so, we'll focus on one particular show and then end that season with a virtual potluck of recipes that we've learned. Plus, we'll be looking for your feedback on which shows to watch next. Yeah, Twitter poll.
Yeah, audience engagement. Woo!
To kick off the new and improved Pod Appétit, we're going to cover Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, Samin Nosrat's Netflix show. Look forward to our first new episode on that series coming your way September 14th. We're also excited to announce that Pod Appétit is joining the Team Whistle Podcast Network.
Woo!
Woo! With Team Whistle, we hope to reach even more foodie fans and help keep our little podcast going.
The little podcast that survived the summer of 2020 when everything exploded. Yeah, and one other announcement is that I am having a baby. So not a food baby, an actual baby.
LJ got knocked up over quarantine.
Yay!
Quarantine
I'm having
baby.
a COVID baby. It's due in January, so a little bit of time left before it's here. But yeah, that's I guess the big news from me. I'm excited. I'm hoping that it won't impact podcasting and Pod Appétit too much, but I'm sure there will be a period of time where I'm unable to take part in our episodes, but I'm sure I'll try and be back as soon as I can.
A little bun in the oven.
Yeah.
See,
only happy news, only good things from here on out on Pod Appétit. Seriously.
Yeah, I've got good feelings now. So I'm excited about the new Pod Appétit, and I really hope everyone listening is excited too. We can't wait for you guys to hear what we have in store.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about some new material, you know, like and also to have the flexibility to be like, oh, this new show's popped up, let's go and look at that, or oh, the audience really want us to cover this show, let's go and do that. So, you know, we're not tied to one thing anymore, so that's really great.
Well, we want to tie up this episode by thanking all of the listeners for your support. Like, our last episode was so huge. It was the biggest episode that we ever released, so thank you everybody for listening and giving your support, giving us feedback. We want to thank everybody for filling out the survey that we put out about what we're going to do next.
Thank you for all those lovely comments in the survey too.
Yes, there are lots of lovely comments.
We want to leave off on one iTunes review that we got earlier in June from John Case. They left a review titled, "Come to hear these four pals talk about food. Stay for their #solidarity."
Love it.
I loved, the Bon Appétit YouTube series, and hearing these enthusiastic fans talk about the test kitchen is such fun that it's my go-to for listening while cooking for months. But their Twitter over the weeks of the fallout about BA's racism problems is what cemented my love for Pod Appétit. Sharing important information, even when critical, calling for real change, it's a really refreshing change to fan culture. Whatever happens at Bon Appétit, the brand, and the cinematic universe, I hope this podcast continues in some form.
Yay!
Good news, we are!
We are!
Yay!
So Pod Appétit is dead. Long live Pod Appétit.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
The test kitchen is closed.
I'm Elisa Lucas from Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'd like to start a movement where we spend more time loving on our friends because although friends are important to us, they're often in the shadow of other relationships. So if you want to love on your friendships a little bit more, embrace friendship a little bit more, or just appreciate your friendships a little bit more, then this podcast is for you. We'll explore all the different ways friendships take place, share the amazing stories of friendship, and discuss best practices for the difficulties that friends may experience. It's time to embrace friendships because without our friends, who would we be? So check out Best Forevers on iTunes, Stitcher, and all the other podcasting listening venues. And be sure to follow Best Forevers Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.